welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Hope you're all doing very well. Sorry, I didn't mean to kick you there. I hope you're all right. Today's video, nothing to do with books. It's to do with the films that I watched last year. So I have a list of all of the new to me films that I watched in 2022. I'm not going to touch upon the films that I watched in the films that I'd already watched, rewatches, let's call them, in 2022. I watched 63 new to me films in 2022. I had hoped that I had done the year before to watch 100 new to me films, but truth being told, I didn't even watch the first new to me film until the 19th of February last year. I didn't watch any films until the 11th of February last year, but good news, I'm filming this on the 5th of January, and I've seen 2 new to me films, and I'm going to see another one tonight at the cinema, so I should definitely be on track to make the 100 new to me films this year, which I very much enjoy doing. I've also got a cinema pass, which I did get last year but didn't have for the beginning of the year. But yeah, so I should be doing 100 new to me films. But what we're going to do is we're going to do what we did in last year's video, where I'm going to look through all of the films that I had and pit them against one another, and then work out if my favourite film, what my favourite film of last year was. So I'm going to go in sort of like chronological order. So the film that I watched, and as I said, we've got 63 to get through, so let's get going. So we've got, on the 19th of February, as I said, I watched Tick Tick Boom, which was the Andrew Garfield film, wasn't it, about the guy who wrote Rent? I've forgotten his name. That's awful that I've forgotten his name. I thought it was all right. I don't remember loving it, and as you can say, I've forgotten the name of the main character. I thought it was fine. Netflix original, wasn't it? Yeah, and it had Vanessa Hudgens in as well, and I remember the big sort of like epic like cafe, not cafe, what do you call it, diner scene, where they had lots of like people from different musicals. It had something to do with Lin-Manuel Miranda as well, didn't it? What did he have to do with it? Did he write the music? Who knows? I thought it was fine. And then the next film, the film I'm pitting it against, is Death on the Nile, which I saw on the 3rd of March. And this is an Agatha Christie film. They're making 3 of these. So they've already done Murder on the Orient Express with Kenneth Branagh playing Poirot. Now they've done Death on the Nile, and I don't know what the last one they're doing is. But I very much enjoyed Death on the Nile, and I think I'm going to put that as that's going to win out of the 2. Next up, we've got Save the Cinema, which I think was a Sky movie about a failing cinema somewhere in Wales, I think. This sort of had like semi-Pride feels. Pride is one of my favourite films ever, and it had Tom Felton in it amongst other people, and they're trying to save their local cinema, and in order to do that they get the premiere of, I think it might be Jurassic Park. God, this is me really having to go back and remember things. I thought it was okay. Then against Turning Red, which I saw on the 11th of March, which is an animation film about sort of like growing up as a young girl, and periods and hormones and all sorts of that. I think I probably enjoyed that more than Save the Cinema. I remember thinking I was going to love that and not loving it, but not loving it, but not like thinking it was the best thing I'd ever seen ever. Next up is the first film that I saw at the cinema with my cinema pass. So I must have got my cinema pass in March. I thought I got it in the summer, obviously not, which was The Phantom of the Open. This is a sort of film with a lot of Eddie the Eagle vibes, if you're not familiar with his story. Well, I won't tell you his story, but Phantom of the Open follows a character played by Mark Rylance, who decides that he wants to start playing golf professionally and sort of forges some stuff to get him into some pretty heavy-duty competitions. And yeah, it was very heartwarming. It was a fun film to see at the cinema. I quite like these sort of like English films about the underdog. And that's up against Boiling Point, which I think probably, just looking at this list, is my favourite film of the year. Boiling Point is an amazing feat of cinema, which is filmed in one shot, and follows the drama and tension of an evening in a restaurant. You follow Stephen Graham's character, Stephen Graham, who I think is an incredible actor. He's the head chef at this restaurant, and you're following the people who are eating in the restaurant, and the front of house staff, and the people who work behind the scenes and things like that. And yeah, like I said, it was just an amazing feat of cinema that they're able to make this feel so real. You really feel like you're in the action, and the camera angles are amazing, and there's a lot in there about sort of like the hospitality industry, and there's a lot of debt involved in the hospitality industry, and planning, and all of this sort of thing. And yeah, I just thought it was absolutely amazing, and that is definitely my favourite out of The Phantom of the Open and Boiling Point. Thought it was amazing. I'll be surprised if that doesn't end up winning. Spoilers. David and I obviously spent the day at the cinema this day because we saw 3 films on the 30th of March. The first being The Duke, which has, oh my goodness me, what's that? Jim Broadbent in it. And he's playing a character who has stolen a piece of artwork, or someone's stolen a piece of artwork. Maybe his son stolen a piece of artwork, I don't know. Anyway, this very famous piece of artwork has found itself at his home. Yeah, it's sort of like the cover up of that and how that came about and things like that. I quite enjoyed it. Again, it's sort of like the Phantom of the Open type vibes in terms of how it made me feel. So I quite enjoyed that. And then Ambulance, which I think was a sort of Speed-esque type film where an ambulance is hijacked and we see sort of like 90 minutes of action playing out in real time. I don't really remember much about I think Jake Gyllenhaal might have been in it. Maybe. I don't really remember much about the plot of it, so I think I'm going to give this one to The Duke. The Duke, you can have it. Next up is probably the easiest decision I'm going to have to make. Well, actually, Uncharted was the last film we saw at the cinema that day. Uncharted is a computer game that David likes playing on the PlayStation. I think it's a bit sort of like, I don't really know the terminology of these computer games, so it's a bit like Lara Croft. Is it like first person play or something? Where you like have a look around at stuff. And this has been made into a film with Tom Holland, who David loves because he's Spider-Man. We went to watch that and it was crap. So it's that up against The Bubble, from which we watched on the 2nd of April, which is a Netflix film about filming a film, another sort of like an action franchise film within a bubble during COVID times. Now, I don't think this film's gonna like stand up to anything in terms of like, well, maybe it'll be memorable because it sort of like documents what it was like to be in a bubble during COVID. So, but yeah, I did find it mildly amusing, much better than Uncharted. So there we go. Then the next 2 I've got are Between Two Ferns, the movie. I don't really remember much about that at all. That's the Zach Galifianakis thing, isn't it? Where he interviews celebrities as a sort of like awkward man between 2 ferns. I don't feel like it. It hasn't stayed with me. And then the film it's up against is Coda, which did stay with me. I think that won the Oscar as well, didn't it, for best movie, about Coda stands for Child of Deaf Adults, and it's about a young girl whose parents are deaf and her brother's deaf, and it's about her learning that she loves singing and wanting to go away to college, but being very much a part of her parents' lives. Her dad and her brother are fishermen, and things are getting more difficult for them because then previously they were sort of just left to just get on with the fishing, and now there's all these sort of rules and regulations and stuff, and as they're deaf, they're unable to, well, they're deaf and they don't they sort of can lip read, but they're not the best communicators, I guess, and nor are the people who they work with. So yeah, I enjoyed that very much. Next up is The Lost City, which is one of those films where the trailer was actually much better than the film. Went to see that at the cinema. That's the Sandra Bullock film with Channing Tatum and Daniel Radcliffe, about Sandra Bullock's character is an author of these sort of like adventure romance films, and Channing Tatum is the cover star of these films, and they end up going on a sort of like adventure romance of themselves. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it, but I do think that the trailer seemed much better. The next film though, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this. I also went to see this on the same day at the cinema, and that's Operation Mince Me, which is a film set in the war, starring oh my goodness me, the woman who's the voice of Merida, Kelly MacDonald, and Matthew Macfadyen, amongst a whole host of people, a whole host of actors working during the war, as I said, and they are trying to set up, it's called Operation Mince Me, and it's a secret covert operation where they're trying to plant secret papers on a dead body and make that dead body look like it's got a backstory, and where they're going to make it wash up so that when the German intelligence look into it, they're not going to think that this is a plant, they're going to think this is an actual person. And I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it, and it's one of the surprise films of the year for me because I'm not a big like war film watcher or anything like that, but yeah, I just thought it was really good. And also they filmed some of it where they filmed Call the Midwife, so I was quite excited to see that. So yeah, that gets the vote against The Lost City. Then we've got The Three Musketeers, which David and I watched and we both thought was absolutely rubbish. In fact, I didn't even think we got to the end of it, but I don't put films down here unless I get to the end of them. Up against Dune, which I didn't particularly enjoy either, the more recent iteration of Dune with Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. My dad's favourite book is Dune, and I think we were reading it for book club that month as well, and I listened to the audiobook and I did not know what was going on, and I watched the film and I did not know what was going on, and my dad was basically like talking us through it voluntarily. We hadn't asked him to give us this information, and sort of like revealing plot points before things happened and stuff like that. I didn't particularly enjoy either of those films, but I remember the Three Musketeers being absolutely crap, so we're going to go for Dune as the better film of the two. Not a good film for me, but the better film of the two. Then we've got two films I saw at the cinema. Downton Abbey, A New Era. Love Downton Abbey. Used to really enjoy it when it was on the old telly, and I've been enjoying these sort of films, like feature length episodes of these, and revisiting the cast because I was very fond of them all. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot, and that's sort of like set on location in the south of France, and there's all sorts going on, and Tom gets a sort of happy ending, which I was happy about. And that's up against Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which we saw at the cinema. These Marvel films that I've been to see, and we're about to come into a massive block of Marvel films, I'm very much there for my husband, David, who loves a Marvel film and a superhero film. And I'm just not sort of into that. I've got very sort of like fatigued by it all, if I'm honest. So I did not enjoy that, but I did enjoy the Downton Abbey film, so that's going to get the vote. Then Cabaret, which we went to see at the cinema because it was an anniversary of it coming out. Neither David or I had ever seen it before, and I very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Liza Minnelli, I'd never seen her in anything. I thought she was amazing, and really enjoyed the actor who was in it as well. I can't think of his name, but yeah, enjoyed that a lot. And that's up against, now as I said, we're getting into Marvel land now, Spider-Man. So I'm going to give Cabaret the vote. Now, it gets a bit confusing here because then David and I watched all of the Spider-Man films from the Tobey Maguire films, the Andrew Garfield films, and the Tom Holland films. And if I'm being honest, each of those films, I can't really remember the sort of like the differences between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 3, for example. So that's going to be tough. So we're on to Spider-Man 2 and 3. Which are the Tobey Maguire ones. I've no idea. We'll go for 2. Then we're on to, then we've got, so Summer of Soul, which was a film I really enjoyed on Disney Plus. We have got a few films in between the Spider-Man films. So, this is a shame because I've really enjoyed both of these films. Summer of Soul, which I watched on Disney Plus, which is about a concert, a black music concert that went ahead the same weekend of, oh God, what's that really famous music festival that went on in America in like the 60s. I can't remember at all. Anyway, it went on that same weekend, and it's like original footage from there, and they're interviewing people who were there, and yeah, it was just really enjoyable couple of hours of sitting and watching a film and hearing like a very young Stevie Wonder and things like that. I really enjoyed it. Up against Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a sort of superhero film, not in the Marvel universe, about a mother and daughter, and it's very sort of absurd and beautiful to watch, and also really mad, and the makeup's amazing and the clothes were amazing, and I really liked it, and I think that probably gets it. I really did enjoy Summer of Soul, so that's a shame that that's up against that because I thought Summer of Soul was great. Then we've got The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. These are the Andrew Garfield ones. They've also got Emma Stone in, and I'm a big Emma Stone fan. I think Emma Stone maybe dies in the second one, so we'll go for the first one just because she doesn't die, but I can't remember. Then we've got West Side Story, which is and I can't remember any, she won the Oscar, didn't she? The girl who's from Hamilton. I can't think of her name. I thought it was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't really know the West Side Story. And that's up against Taylor Swift Reputation Stadium Tour, which I watched on Netflix one night when David was out. That was fine. Again, two sort of fine things that I didn't, maybe I'll go for West Side Story, but I didn't love it. Then Sense and Sensibility, which is the Kate Winslet and Emma Thompson one, which I absolutely loved, up against Spider-Man Homecoming. We're going for Sense and Sensibility. Then we've got the last two Spider-Mans. This is where the Spider-Man thing ends. Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home. I can't tell you the difference between them. They're the most recent ones, aren't they? This is another one where I'm saying, has it got Jake Gyllenhaal in it? Spider-Man Far From Home or Spider-Man No Way Home? I'll go for the last one. I don't really remember. It's not getting any further than that round, don't worry about it. Then we've got Fire Island. This month was June when I was watching Jane Austen related things, so that's why Sense and Sensibility is in there as well. I also watched Emma, which I'd already seen last year, and Clueless, which is a retelling of Emma, which I'd already seen before. Fire Island is a gay retelling of Pride and Prejudice. I enjoyed it a lot. It's very sort of like lots of partying and they go away to this island and yeah, it's all happening. Against Lightyear, which is the Buzz Lightyear origin story. Saw that at the cinema. I think I probably enjoyed Fire Island more than I enjoyed Buzz Lightyear. Then Persuasion, not, oh, like I said, I've been watching some Jane Austen stuff. Not the newest Persuasion, which I still haven't watched yet. This is the Persuasion with Sally Hawkins in, which is filmed in Bath, which doesn't always happen for Jane Austen films, even though a lot of them are set in Bath. I quite enjoyed it. I did quite enjoy it. Against Elvis, which was the big Baz Luhrmann. What did I enjoy more? I think I might have enjoyed Elvis a bit more, just because of the outfits and sparkliness of it all. Then we've got Minions, The Rise of Gru. Went to see that at the cinema with David. Again, I think that might have been another one where the actual trailer's better than the film, because in the trailer you see a little minion get his trousers sucked off in the toilet, and that was probably the best bit of the film for me. Up against The Railway Children Return, which I very much enjoyed. It's got Jenny Agutter, who's from Call the Midwife in it, and lovely, lovely film. Really, really enjoyed that. Sort of, that's my bag, that is, cosy sort of Sunday films. Then we've got The Grey Man, which was an action film starring Ryan Reynolds and Chris Evans. I always get my Chris's mixed up, so that might not be Chris, might be Chris Pine. Chris Evans or Chris Pine? Not, is it the one that was, I can't even remember. They both look pretty much identical to me as well, do they? One of them's Captain America, isn't he? Anyway, The Grey Man, that was a Netflix film. We actually went to see it at the cinema because they release these Netflix films like a week before, don't they, and put them on at the cinema. I do like Ryan Gosling, and I think he's very handsome to look at, and I remember it being quite cinematically quite tense and shot wonderfully. That's up against Thor, Love and Thunder. This is when it was really hot and David and I were going to the cinema whenever we could to cool down because it had air conditioning. We took my mum and dad to see Thor, Love and Thunder as well. Did I like Thor, Love and Thunder more than I liked The Grey Man? I think I might have done, and for a reason I can't really say because it's a big spoiler about something, the post-credit scene. That might be why. Then we've got Where the Crawdads Sing, which is a film version of the very famous and popular book. David loved that. He thought it was amazing. It's got Daisy Edgar-Jones in it, who I really, really like from Normal People. I thought it was fine. I knew the story, so as it was unrolled, but David was absolutely glued to it. Now I've put this up against, because I do count these, I went to see some National Theatre live at the cinema, and these do count as films according to Letterboxd. And I went to see Prima Faki with Jodie Comer, and it was amazing. It's a one-woman show of Jodie Comer's character as a barrister, and she does a lot of a defence lawyer, and she defends a lot of men who have been accused of sexual assault, and then she finds herself in a sexual assault case of her own, and it was just amazing. Like, such a powerful performance. I've just never seen anything like it. It was amazing. So that wins compared to Where the Crawdads Are. We're up to number 42, so let's have a look. This is the last page of them now. Then we rewatched all the Hunger Games films. And we'd both seen all of them, apart from we hadn't seen Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, which is the big finale of the franchise and the books. I've only read the last book once, whereas I'm very familiar with the first two books, having seen the films of them a few times. I thought it was pretty good, and quite a good depiction of what happened. Also, I was always impressed that they managed to get like as much, because Philip Seymour Hoffman died during them filming this, whereas it doesn't feel like that when you're watching it, so I thought it was pretty good. But I also saw Westlife live in cinemas. I love Westlife. They're an Irish boy band, man band we should say now. Went to the cinema to watch that. It didn't start, there was a lot of drama going on. There was a lot of very angry women there because the streaming service that the concert, because it was happening live in Croke Park, or Wembley maybe live at Wembley, and it was being streamed, but the streaming service that was having some issues, so we didn't get to watch it until half hour in. But I still think I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. Then we went to watch Bullet Train. Did we go to watch Bullet Train? I haven't, oh no, I think I've stopped marking the ones that I went to see at the cinema. Bullet Train, which is the Brad Pitt sort of assassin type film. Quite comical, a lot of good performances, enjoyed it. Very bright and sort of fun to look at despite all the violence. Up against a very different film called Fire of Love, which is a documentary film about a couple who are volcanologists who really like looking into volcanoes and the effects they have, and there's lots and lots of footage of their time looking at volcanoes, and yeah, this documentary wasn't made and they weren't interviewed. This was just footage that people have found and then put together, and how close they get to the volcanoes was absolutely amazing. Like, we couldn't believe it, and it was very sort of like reading between the lines in terms of their love story and seeing their relationship together and stuff like that. I very much enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it more than Bullet Train, so we're going to go for Fire of Love. Then we saw Beast, which was it's an Idris Elba film that sort of is marketed as like Jaws but with a lion. But it was like, I quite enjoy these sort of like naff action films. I quite enjoyed it. End to End. I don't remember what End to End was. I've literally no idea. I'm gonna have to go and ask David. Hold on 1 minute. David?
Yeah.
Was End to End the film we went to watch?
End to End?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm going to put it up.
David's looking at his film. He keeps a bit more details than I do. It was one of my favourite things I watched last year, and actually I think when I went through this and did my Instagram post of the things, my favourite things that I watched last year, I didn't include this because again I didn't know what it was. It was a documentary about pop star George Ezra and him walking from Land's End to John O'Groats, or the other way around, whatever way they do it, and his journey, and interviewing musicians on the way, and him talking about his mental health. George Ezra, who is a pop star, as I said, and I very much enjoy him, all the way through lockdown he did a podcast with his friend called Phone a Friend, and that was a real sort of like something I really enjoyed during lockdown, and always look forward to that coming out every week, and really I remember it so vividly as part of lockdown. And he's got a really open way about talking about mental health, and I loved this. I absolutely loved it. And then at the end, there was a little mini concert that he did where he performed some songs, and he's just such a nice chap. And yeah, it was really, really lovely. I loved that so much. Can't believe I didn't include that in my best films. So yeah, that is Whatever's Next is one. No, Whatever's Next hasn't won. So, oh, it's a shame because it was a film I enjoyed. It's Where is Anne Frank, which was an animation about Anne Frank's story. And the animations were done by, I actually have the book. I don't know where it is. Oh yeah, here we go. So this book that David's mum bought me is the illustrations done by David Polonsky, and these are the illustrations that are used in the film. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It was really good, but sadly, oh sorry, that's got to go there. Sadly, I enjoyed End to End more. So there we go. Then I've got See How They Run. Don't remember that either. Don't remember See How They Run, David? What's See How They Run? Yes, that had Saoirse Ronan in it, and it is a sort of murder mystery set while they're investigating a murder that's happened at the theatre where the Agatha Christie play The Mousetrap is going on. We went to this, we went on a Friday night. We don't often go to the cinema on the Friday night, we normally go sort of during the week. And we went along thinking, this is going to be a great Friday night. Look at us out at the cinema on a Friday night, and it was just fine and probably a little bit too long. So we didn't love that. But it's up against Ticket to Paradise, which we thought was completely naff and was a rom-com with Julia Roberts and George Clooney. They are divorced and they're coming together for their daughter's wedding, and just sort of like the boringness of that, as you can imagine. So we'll go for See How They Run as the winner. Then we've got Don't Worry Darling, which I did include as one of my favourite films this year, with Florence Pugh, who I love her, and Harry Styles. There's not that much I can say about this because I wasn't expecting it to go the way that it did, and that elated and delighted me, as did some of the people that were in the cinema around me. Everyone was all like, couldn't believe it. But yeah, sort of set in the 50s. All these sort of housewives providing this beautiful life for their husbands as they go off to work every day, and Florence Pugh feeling sort of like very trapped and looking at some strange stuff that's going on around her. I didn't find it as scary as I did. I was a bit worried it was going to be a bit scary, but like I really enjoyed sort of looking at everyone in it and the outfits, and the tension was built up, and like I said, I had no idea where it was going, so very much enjoyed that. Up against Catherine Called Birdie, which I thought was going to be brilliant. It's got Andrew Scott in it, Billie Piper, and about a young girl in sort of like, well, I don't even know what times it is, long time ago times, and her just wanting to live her life, which is not the case. I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, like Henry VIII times. Maybe a little bit sort of medieval times, maybe? I don't know, like a long time ago. And we watched the trailer and I thought it looked amazing, but if I'm being honest, I found the whole thing very, very, very sad. And there were some very troubling birth scenes in there, which really upset me. And yeah, there was some, I mean, Andrew Scott, as ever, delivered an amazing performance, but his character was not a very nice man. And once I realised that it wasn't also, so I think I went into it with expectations of it being sort of like quite a light-hearted, coming-of-age, joyful film about a young girl, when really it was more about her sort of like very angry and very sad father, and him sort of like making her do things that she didn't want to do, because that will make him look better. And yeah, it made me sad. But yeah, Don't Worry Darling wins anyway. Then Hocus Pocus 2, which we can all agree was rubbish, up against Bros, which I went to see with my friends at the cinema, which I really, really enjoyed. A romantic comedy about a guy who's sort of like a very openly not into having relationships, and sort of like sleeps with different men, and just quite happy to sort of like just be going by himself, and then meets somebody and that sort of, and falls for him, but it's a bit sort of like guarded and doesn't really want to fall for him. I enjoyed it. It's the guy, I don't know his name, but he's the voice of Timon in the Lion King remake. And he does that like something on the street. I can't remember his name. This must be so awful to watch. You're watching this thinking, what is she talking about? I don't even know what she's talking about. But I really enjoyed it. I will say though, it's got some of the most graphic sex scenes I've ever seen. It's a gay romance, but like regardless of gay or straight sex scenes, it's got some of the most graphic sex scenes I've ever seen in my life. Me and my friends were shrieking, we couldn't believe it. But yeah, I enjoyed that much, much more than I enjoyed Hocus Pocus 2. Then we're into Christmas land. Falling for Christmas, Lindsay Lohan Christmas film about her falling down a ski slope, innit? Against Spirited, which was the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell thing, which was a sort of like a retelling of Christmas Carol musical. I enjoyed that much more than I enjoyed Falling for Christmas. I thought Falling for Christmas was rubbish. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. That's a short little thing. Does what it says on the tin. I watched that with David. You'll be surprised to hear. Christmas special of Guardians of the Galaxy, where they kidnap Kevin Bacon to give him to Chris Pratt as a Christmas present. Up against Your Christmas or Mine, which I actually quite enjoyed. David, when we watched this, was like, this is so rubbish, and since then has been talking about how rubbish it was. About a couple. Asa Butterfield is the guy who plays it. The actor who plays his girlfriend, I don't know her name, but I'd never seen her in anything before, and I thought she was bloody brilliant. They're at the train station ready to go to their own Christmases, and then at the last minute they're both like, oh, I'm going to go and join the train and go to Christmas with my partner, and swap trains because they both think the same thing. So she ends up spending Christmas, very lonely Christmas, with his dad on her own, and him, and he goes to Christmas at her parents' house where they don't know about him. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very Christmassy. So I'm going to go for that over Guardians of the Galaxy. Then we went to the cinema and we saw Matilda, which I very much enjoyed. I hadn't seen the stage show, so I had nothing to sort of like base on what this would be like. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun and really enjoyable, and I thought the performances were amazing, and I really liked Emma Thompson in it, and I really liked Lashana Lynch in it, and the girl who played Matilda was amazing. Yeah, it was really sort of like uplifting and nice, against Wakanda Forever, which I sadly did not enjoy. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, I just thought it was fine. Like, Black Panther is one of my top 10 films of all time. I love Black Panther, but this I just thought was, there was a lot going on, there was a lot of characters, there was a lot of stuff to sort of introduce and sum up, and I don't, and people missing, and I don't mean, obviously it was like, I'm not talking about the guy who played Black Panther, whose name has also escaped me. I'm also talking about things like Daniel Kaluuya not being in it and that not really being addressed and stuff like that. Yeah, I just thought it was fine. So Matilda definitely wins. And then, last two films of the year was The Menu, which I really enjoyed, which had Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult in it as seemingly a couple who are going to this sort of like exclusive supper club night on this island, which is run by Ralph Fiennes' character. And yeah, it's sort of like a comedy horror type thing, and it really unfolds quite slowly, and like before you know it, you're in this grip of this real massive weird situation that's going on. But I really love Anya Taylor-Joy, and I think she's brilliant in bloody everything, so I enjoyed that a lot. But I did enjoy this next film better, which was Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. That was one of my favourite films of the year. Second film in the Glass Onion sort of, not in the Knives Out series. I don't know how many more of these are going to be, where Daniel Craig plays a detective, and they're sort of quite Agatha Christie-esque in that there's a group of people, there's been a murder, we're trying to work out what's happened. And this one I really enjoyed watching because I was sort of like picking things out and thinking, oh, I think I might know where that's going to lead to and stuff like that, and I really, really loved it. And I just thought the performances were amazing, like really, really good. And this is another film that was also set like during COVID times, and it really represented sort of well how annoying, like there's lots of like little Easter eggs in there for you to sort of see, and I quite like to go back and watch it again actually to see if like there's more foreshadowing than I know about, obviously not having gone to watch it for the first time. So that definitely wins above The Menu. Right, okay, so we've gone through. Let's go back then and work out who gets through to round two. Right, let's see what gets through to round two. So we're going to go a bit quicker this time, so I'm sure I'll just insert. So we've got Death on the Nile versus Turning Red. I think I'm going to go for Death on the Nile. Then we've got Boiling Point versus The Duke. Definitely going for Boiling Point. Like I said, one of my favourite films of the year. Then I've got The Bubble versus Coda. And I'm going to go for Coda. Then I've got Operation Mincemeat versus Dune. I'm going to go for Operation Mincemeat. Then I've got Downton Abbey: A New Era versus Cabaret. I'm going to go for Downton Abbey: A New Era. Then I've got Spider-Man 2, which I can't remember anything about, against Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm going to go for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Then I've got The Amazing Spider-Man versus West Side Story. I think I'm going to go for The Amazing Spider-Man because I quite enjoyed the sort of, I like it when people get together when they're working together. So like I like it that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone ended up together. Then we've got Sense and Sensibility against Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm going to go for Sense and Sensibility. I enjoyed that very much. Then I've got Fire Island versus Elvis. I'm going to go for Fire Island. Then we've got The Railway Children Return versus Thor Love and Thunder. I'm going to go for The Railway Children Return. Then we've got Prima Faki versus Westlife Live in Cinemas. I'm going to go for Prima Faki. And then we've got Fire of Love versus End to End. The George Ezra thing. I'm going to go for End to End. Then we've got See How They Run versus Don't Worry Darling. I'm going to go for Don't Worry Darling. Then we've got Bros versus Spirited. I'm going to go for Bros. Then we've got Your Christmas or Mine versus Matilda. I'm going to go for Matilda. And then, which doesn't get to go up against anything, but to be honest, it probably would have won whatever it went up against, was Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. So let's see what's in round three. We've got Death on the Nile versus Boiling Point. We're going to go for Boiling Point. We've got Coda versus Operation Mincemeat. I think I'm going to go for Operation Mincemeat. We've got Downton Abbey: A New Era versus Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm going to go for Everything Everywhere All at Once. We've got The Amazing Spider-Man versus Sense and Sensibility. We're going to go for Sense and Sensibility. We've got Fire Island versus The Railway Children Return. I'm going to go for The Railway Children Return. We've got Prima Faki versus end to end. Oh. I think I'm going to go for end to end, but Prima Faki was amazing. Don't Worry Darling versus Bros. Gonna go for Don't Worry Darling. And Matilda versus Glass Onion. I'm gonna go for Glass Onion. I don't know what round we're on now, 4, but this might be the quarterfinals, who knows. So we've got Boiling Point versus Operation Mince Me. We're gonna go for Boiling Point. We've got Everything Everywhere All at Once versus Sense and Sensibility. Oh, I think Everywhere Everywhere All at Once just nudges it. We've got The Railway Children Return versus End to End. I'm going to go for End to End. And we've got Don't Worry Darling versus Glass Onion. A Knives Out Mystery. Oh, God. Oh. Oh, no. I mean, at the moment, I think Don't Worry Darling, but I know when I think Don't Worry Darling. Just goes to show how you can feel on another day. Then we've got Boiling Point versus Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think it is Boiling Point. Then we've got End to End versus Don't Worry Darling. I think End to End has got it. And then the final then is Boiling Point versus End to End. I think Boiling Point just does it. I really, really, really loved Boiling Point. So there we go. My favourite film, which actually is what I thought my favourite film was Boiling Point, which I very much enjoyed. Let me know what the best film you watched in 2022 was. Would love to hear. Let me know if you've... Sorry about kicking you again. Let me know if you've watched any of the films that I mentioned here today. Would love to hear some of your favourite films from 2022 so that I can factor them in if I haven't watched them already into this year. Do you set yourself any film challenges? Interested to hear. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!